Hello there. Today I have in my tasting glass a Saint-Émilion Grand Cru Classé. This is Chateau Barde Haut and it's the 2019 vintage of that. Barde Haut is a fairly typically sized Saint-Émilion. It sits on the plain to the east of Saint-Émilion, the town itself. There's a sort of an amphitheatre that faces south as part of the plateau, and this is where these vineyards are located. The soils have an underlying limestone, but are clay topsoils predominantly. And the estate really has come to the fore since 2000, when it was purchased by Sylviane Garcin-Cathiard, and a member of a family that owns quite a number of estates throughout Bordeaux. I mean, for instance, the Cathiard family own Smith Haute Lafitte in Pessac-Léognan, so they're a well-known name. And Sylviane has been able to invest a large amount of capital, I would guess, in Barde Haut, and has seen some real improvements. I mean, for instance, since 2000 they've built new chateau buildings, very modern, architecturally designed, quite striking iron structures, but all produced to be as environmentally friendly as possible. So the new buildings all have solar panels, there's a wind turbine, they collect rainwater, so all these features being looked at. And the investment has had some excellent results. Barde Haut was actually elevated to Grand Cru Classé in 2012, so you know, within 12 years to get a result, I think is excellent there. The vines sit mostly around the chateau themselves, the majority of them in a walled vineyard. There's a vine age of about 35 years on average for most of them, although there is a couple of old plots of Cabernet Franc that are well in excess of that. So most of the vines are in one plot, but there are a few vines in another plot near Chateau Fromage. So winemaking here goes on in a collection of vessels. They have oak, stainless steel and cement vats, all of which are open, so fermentation goes on, and the cap of skins is plunged back down into the fermenting must or wine, depending on which stage you're at, throughout the process. And in fact, 5% of the wine is fermented in oak barrels as well, sort of small micro fermentations going on there. The vineyards at this stage, according to the back label for the 2019, were planted about 80% to Merlot with 20% of Cabernet Franc in there, so I'd assume a similar consistency of the blend to the wine, although there's been a lot of replanting going on, so I believe since then the balance is more like sort of 25% Cabernet Franc and only 75% Merlot, so a bit of change going on there in the style. The approach is to make quite a modern wine, so it goes into barrel and it does its malolactic conversion in barrel. Those barrels are French oak barriques, as you'd expect at a Bordeaux chateau, but they're almost all new, particularly in a ripe vintage like 2019, and the wine stays in there for 18 months, so there should be quite a forward flavour of oak, and also the fermentation, I would guess, would help that oak to marry into the wine. So let's have a look at it, shall we? We've got a very deep colour here. It's quite a maroon note that makes me, you know, think this is more likely to be Merlot than Cabernet Franc, which, I mean, obviously we know from the blend anyway, but this Cabernet I would expect to have a slightly sort of lighter colour. This is quite dense, it's dark, and yeah, I really can't make out the stem as I look through the glass, so you know, nice depth there. As I'm swirling, there is some staining on the glass, and there are tears forming quite easily. The wine is 14.5% alcohol, so I'm hardly surprised by that. It's a ripe vintage 2019, and Merlot will give you good high alcohol. So let's have a look at the aromas, shall we? Those aromas are rich, they're very ripe, there's sort of plum, prune, red fruit note in there, and there's a meaty aspect to the wine. It's meaty, it's got earthy touches, but the fruit is rich and ripe, and it's not really showing the oak particularly. So let's have a taste and see what we make of that. On the palate, this is evidently a young wine. Oh, it's very evidently a young wine. I mean, that was what I was expecting, but actually there's nice freshness. There's a good, firm, grainy tannin giving structure, and yet at the same time, although there is a drying, maybe slightly spicy note to that tannin, there's a suppleness as well. There's a sort of a velvety, smooth suppleness, a chocolatey smoothness, and possibly a touch of chocolatey flavour as well. That would all follow on from having done malactic conversion in the barrel. There is a full richness, there's a nice density to the wine. It's medium to full-bodied, possibly sort of medium full-bodied to full actually. The wine has this rich roundness, and yet at the same time, the finish, there's a fresh red plum note. The core of the wine is sort of dense, red plum, black plum, damson, bullace, those sorts of notes. And yet that freshness stays there all the time, right to the end. I mean, look, this is a wine that has the structure and the acidity to age, we can see that. Its fruit is probably, you know, quite in on itself at the moment. It will probably close up a little more, and I think this is probably a wine to come back to in 5 or 6 years' time. And once it's started to open out, it probably has a lifespan of another 10 years. But that's an attractive modern wine. As I say, it's got that roundness, the richness, the plushness. This is a well-made wine that I think has a long life ahead of it. So that was Chateau Barde Haut, Grand Cru Classé Saint-Émilion 2019. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you'll like and share the video with your friends. I hope you'll follow us on YouTube, and I hope you'll see if you can make time to join us for another tasting again sometime soon. Goodbye now.